Don't worry, Geppetto. If I seen a living puppet coming to life in the most disturbing way possible, that would have been terrified out of my mind too. Hey everyone, this is Rap News on Animation Bliss, and welcome to another At the Movies, where I review the most recent animated films that came out. So today's animated film that I'll be reviewing today is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. And before I get into my thoughts about this film, here are a few words from the channel. Alright, Animaniacs, now let's get on the social media train. Want to chat with us in 100 words or less? Then check out our Twitter account. Want to chat with us within a group? Then check out our Facebook account. Want to get the lowdown on everything dealing with animation on this channel? Then check all of the above. And now, we return to our regularly scheduled program. So 2022 was a very interesting year. Not only did we have a lot of stop motion animated films come out this year, but we also got not one, not two, but 3 Pinocchio movies that came out this year, which included Pinocchio: A True Story, Disney's live-action remake of Pinocchio, and of course, Guillermo del Toro's version of Pinocchio. And the Pinocchio that I'll be reviewing today is, of course, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Now, this was one of my most anticipated films for 2022, and when I first heard about Del Toro actually doing a Pinocchio film, I will admit that I was really interested in it, despite the fact that I haven't seen a lot of Del Toro's films over the years. But I was still really interested in this film because it looked really creepy and because it's stop motion animated. So of course I had to check out this film for myself. But before we go into my thoughts about this film, here's a brief summary of the film. So the film starts off with Geppetto being a loving man who has a son named Carlo, and they ended up doing a lot of things together. One tragic day, however, when World War I started, Geppetto's son Carlo ends up being stuck in the church, and it turns out that one of the bombs ends up hitting the church, killing Carlo. This distressed Geppetto so much that he ends up becoming a drunk because of his son's death, and he decided to build a puppet that's in the likeness of his son Carlo just to get over his grief. But unfortunately, because Geppetto was so drunk when he was building the puppet, said puppet was a mangled mess. But despite this, the blue fairy, or in this case a blue being that looks like a fairy, comes in and ends up bringing Pinocchio to life. And basically the film is spent on Geppetto trying to get used to Pinocchio while getting over the grief of losing his son Carlo. And then it also spends time on Pinocchio trying to get used to the new world while avoiding any kind of dangers along the way. So what are my thoughts about this film? I love this film. I think as of this video, this is probably my favorite movie of the year. But let's talk about some of the things I really loved about this film. So the first thing that I loved about this film were the designs. As I mentioned before, I usually have a love-hate relationship with stop-motion animation. They're either very beautiful to look at or it's very scary to look at. And in the case of Pinocchio, the stop-motion animation was both creepy and beautiful at the same time. I really love how all the characters are designed. Like you have Pinocchio himself, who looks very nightmarish because he was made when Geppetto was drunk, and so he looks very imperfect and he looks very creepy as a result. But at the same time, I really love his design because he's very unique from all other interpretations of Pinocchio, as Pinocchio is usually portrayed as being this cute looking puppet boy, but here he looks very ugly, and again we get to see why that's the case in this film, but yet it makes him look very unique from all the other versions of Pinocchio. And I also love the designs of the human characters themselves, as they look very realistic, and I just love how these designs actually fit in very well with the darker, edgier nature of this film. And another thing I really liked about this film were the themes. So one of the reasons why this is a darker, edgier take on the Pinocchio fairy tale is because of the themes they explore. So one of the major themes that this film explores is the loss of a child and how a parent has to deal with losing their child. And we get to see that throughout the movie as Geppetto struggles with the loss of his son Carlo and how he can't really see Pinocchio as any other person than Carlo and gets upset if Pinocchio doesn't act like Carlo. And we get to see how this has a strained relationship between Pinocchio and Geppetto because of that. And I love the fact that the film is able to go into depth about how a parent feels that they lost their child and what the concept of replacement goldfish really means in this context. I also love the fact that this film has an anti-war message throughout. Like, this film takes place in passes Italy, and so we get to see a lot of what's going on during the war, and we get to see how everybody's reacting to the war and how it's affecting everybody so badly, especially Geppetto, since he lost his son during the war. So I do love the fact that this movie tackles the issues of war and what kind of casualties and emotional trauma can happen during the war. Another thing that I really liked about this film was how heartwarming it was. Even though this is a darker, edgier take on the Pinocchio story, there are a lot of heartwarming moments throughout this film, especially the moments between Geppetto and Pinocchio. And I really love the fact that the film focuses a lot on the emotional depth with these characters and made us really sympathize with all the characters. Well, just the good characters, not the bad characters. But still, there's a lot of emotional moments in this film that I love, and I actually teared up at a couple of scenes because they were so emotional. And I really love the fact that you actually get to understand these characters and feel a lot of emotion for these characters as they go through such horrifying situations. And I actually felt bad for Pinocchio throughout various parts of the film, since he's trying to get used to the real world, but everybody's so hostile towards him, including Geppetto, and you kind of can't help but feel a little sorry for him as he's being mistreated by everybody just because he's different from everybody else. So I do like how this film is able to hit those emotional beats and make you really feel for these characters. Another thing I really liked about this film was the animation itself. I really love the stop motion animation of this film. It gave me vibes to Coraline and The Nightmare Before Christmas, and I really enjoy how jerky the characters move, and yet the designs of the characters make them so lifelike that the animation felt so fluid to me. So I love how they were able to incorporate the stop motion animation in this film. Now, if there was a minor issue that I have with this film, it was that I felt like the middle part was a little too inconsistent or a bit clunky. Like, I can't really explain to you guys what happened in the middle of the movie without spoiling the movie for you guys, but let's just say that the movie starts off with one particular scene set in another place, and then all of a sudden that scene shifts to another location midway through. So I was a bit confused about that. And I felt like the middle part of the film was a bit janky and inconsistent at times. So I did have a bit of a problem with the middle part of the film. But overall, I really love Del Toro's Pinocchio. Despite the fact that the middle half was a little inconsistent and janky at times, I love the animation of this film, and I love the emotional moments in this film, and I just love the designs of the characters themselves. I think that this is honestly one of the best retellings for Pinocchio, and if you're looking for a retelling of Pinocchio that's dark and edgy, but yet has a lot of emotional moments to it, I highly recommend this film. You won't regret it. So those are my thoughts on Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and tell me in the comments down below, have you seen Del Toro's Pinocchio? And if you have, did you like this movie? Did you hate this movie? And what's your favorite retelling of the classic Pinocchio story? Please let me know in the comments down below. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbit's Blog Animation Bliss, and I'll see you guys later. Hey animation fans, like this video? If you want to see more animated content from this channel, then please hit that big old animated subscribe button so that you can get more awesome content from this channel.